Today on Clearing the Clutter Inside and Out, we are talking about how believing is achieving. Do you feel that if you believe it, you can achieve it? How does someone have a strong enough faith and stay so focused to make their dreams a reality? Who are you surrounding yourself with to be successful? Do you appreciate what you have and the opportunities that come your way? Let's continue to focus on self-love and self-care in this month's bonus episode.
Ready to clear your clutter and share your gifts with the world? Every Tuesday at 1 p.m., join award-winning professional organizer, author, and certified life coach Julie Caraccio on clearing the clutter inside and out, as she teaches you how to navigate the waters to declutter your life. Julie Caraccio destroys the box and examines clutter in all areas: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, energetic, relationships, health, finances, and more.
I did this interview a few years back with Perry Williams, who is a former NFL player. He's a Super Bowl champion and one of the most down-to-earth, nicest guys that you'll ever meet. I was at a women's luncheon and heard him speak, and I said, I've got to have you on my show. It's so interesting to me how he overcame so many obstacles in his youth, pays special attention to the toilet bowl story that he shares, because I think that's a great example of you're a child and sometimes life happens to us, whether it's when we're a child, when we're a young adult, someone says you can't make it happen, they mock our dreams. And at a really young age, he was able to believe in himself and stay focused and achieve the dreams that he wanted. To me, there's no greater love than self-love. It all begins with you. And Perry shows you, and I hope inspires you, to know that no matter what your circumstances or challenges are, you can achieve what you dream. Our next guest tonight is going to talk about why believing is achieving. How does a boy at 11 say he's going to go to the Super Bowl and 15 years later achieve that? How is leadership and serving the community a part of tonight's guest message? We're going to talk about that and much, much more tonight. In tonight's Reawaken You, I'm going to encourage you to visualize and feel what it is that you want to achieve. We'll ask Perry about that tonight, but I think it's really important to see things happening, because if you visualize it, that can help you achieve it. So this week, what is it that you want to accomplish? Take a few minutes, sit quietly, and visualize and feel the feeling that you would have if you accomplish something. Take time to do that, and we'll see what you do next week. All right, we're going to tell you about tonight's guest. Perry Williams played for the New York Giants for 11 years and earned 2 Super Bowl rings. He has been the Director of Outreach Programs for Continuing Studies at Farley Dickinson University since 1995. Perry is also an adjunct professor at the school, teaching leadership and ethic courses. Perry Williams has been a keynote speaker at the Outreach Program Banquet for Exxon, addressed the UPS team on leadership skills, and spoken to the Verizon Sales Division on teamwork. He has also addressed numerous younger audiences on similar topics geared towards school-aged children. Perry is heavily involved in the community with a focus on sports and children, including the Perry Williams 3 Sports Challenge YMCA Outreach Program, keynote speaker at the State of New Jersey's Governor Urban Youth Summit, Who Will I Be?, and is a guest speaker for Hoboken Head Start on the importance of father-male guardian involvement in school and life. Welcome, Perry.
Thank you for having me, Julie.
We're excited. I heard Perry speak at a women's luncheon, and I said, hey, I've got to have you on my show because you are so inspiring. And if there's a quote on football, I guarantee you that Perry Williams knows it. So let's get started. I want you to talk briefly about your background. There's a lot here. Growing up in the South had just started desegregation when you were in school. You ended up meeting a guy that's like, you got to meet my dad. So tell us a little bit about the circumstances of your youth.
Well, as you know, as I stated to you before, I'm from Hamlet, North Carolina, Richmond County. I grew up down there, my grade school years. From there, I started out like many young kids in the sports at the age of 10 years old. I enjoyed sports. I was introduced to the game by a classmate's father. That was a little league coach in my town at the time, and I just really enjoyed playing the game. Got involved, And at first, my mom and my grandmother, well, especially my mother, she didn't want me to get engaged in sports, especially football, because she thought I would get hurt and she didn't have the money to pay for medical expenses. But nevertheless, my grandmother kind of nudged on and said, let him go, and it'd be a good thing for him. And I got involved. It took me from Little League through middle school, through high school, Richmond Senior High. I graduated from there in 1979. I had a full scholarship at North Carolina State University. Came here at NC State 1979 to 83. Also, I had a dual scholarship, Julie. I had a scholarship in track and field as well as football. So went through those process, and when you know anything, 1983 had rolled around, and I was playing for got drafted by the New York Football Giants and played there for 11 years. The thing that I talk about a lot, Julie, you've heard me say this, the believing is achieving. That is my motto. I believe that if you believe in yourself, then anything is possible. I believed in it. I started out with the story, I call it the toilet bowl story. When I was 11 years old, I told my mom and my grandmother that one day I was going to be somebody. I was going to make something happen in my life. And with that in mind, I was telling them about football and that I was going to play in the NFL. And not only was I going to play in the NFL, I was going to even play in the Super Bowl. So I remember this distinctly one particular day. My mom and grandmother was talking, and my grandmother told my mother, say, you hear this kid talking about he's going to play pro football and be in the NFL, talking about playing in the Super Bowl. So the only kind of Super Bowl he'll end up playing is the toilet bowl. So they laughed about it, of course, but I remember distinctly telling my mother and my grandmother that one day it would happen. So 14, 15 years later, my dream became a reality. I was ended up, and I played in my first Super Bowl, 1987.
Which is amazing. But talk to us about that, because when you first said that at 11, not a lot of kids have that determination to say, I want to make it to the Super Bowl and I'm going to do that. And you believed in yourself. You had people around you who didn't support you. So what do you think it is about you, or did you learn it from a mentor that allowed you to focus and believe so much in yourself? Well,
it was a culmination of things. My mother and my grandmother are obviously instrumental in my life. And even my uncle here, my mother's brother, he was instrumental in helping me out and encouraging me to believe in myself. And by the positive reinforcing of my peers and coaches and teachers and a host of other people, I just try to stay in the inner circle of positivity. If you believe in yourself and you believe in being around the positivity, then it becomes the end result of things that happen a lot of times. I believe if you're around negative people, then you end up being a negative person. And so I don't believe in negativity. I believe in positivity. I believe that anything is possible. And I guess I'm a living example of it. I just believed in myself. I never gave up. I felt like quitting many times, like any other person. I'm a human being. But at the same token, I just kept, hanging in there, and then it worked out for me.
So what would you do to get over those humps or those big challenges when you felt like quitting?
Well, I had a guy, which was my mentor at that time, a Little League coach, Coach Charlie Bishop. He was a great football player himself. He played at East Carolina University in the 50s. Matter of fact, a couple of years ago, he was inducted in the East Carolina Hall of Fame, Football Hall of Fame. Great guy. He's retired now to Richmond County, lives down in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. He was a guy who he was dedicated. He believed in his young kids that he worked with, and I just thought I bought into the concept, and never changed and never turned away from it, and just kept moving. Like many young kids now. You talking about when I met him 10, 11, 12 years old. I diverted. I got off the track a little bit, but at the same token, he would always get me back on the track and get me to start, make sure I stayed positive and believed in myself, and talked about the teamwork concept. And, if you don't have teamwork concept, you're not going to be very successful in any kind of sport. So I always believed in working as a team and having understanding each other's role, and we're just working together to have that winning edge.
And what would you say to someone, and we talked about this prior to the show, because you also work with children, yes. You're teaching business people like myself. A lot of times, people don't see the benefit of teamwork. They say, oh, you're my competition. But I believe you're stronger. You can work with your competition because you each have your unique traits and specialties. Like tonight's sponsor is Emily Parks, and yes. I do professional organizing. Well, Emily's the go-to gal for technology. I'm happy to help promote her. She does something completely different, and she's great about that. But a lot of people don't see that. So what would you say to people who are maybe challenged in seeing the benefit of working as a team?
Well, the easiest thing that I can say is just look at the people who have had a lot of success, great success. That's all you got to do. You don't take a rocket scientist to really figure this stuff out. You be around successful people, and every successful person I've ever met always had a host or a team of people that they work with, and putting it together and understanding each other's role. I think that's most important, understanding each other's role. If you understand your role and everybody got a role and work cohesively together, then you have a chance to be successful. If you have your own agenda and you want to do your own thing, you're not going to be very successful. And I've always believed, and then I bought into that concept early on, as I was stated to you earlier. I won a Little League championship. I won a state championship in my senior year in high school. I won an ACC championship in football when I got to NC State my freshman year. I won 2 Super Bowl rings. So I think I know a little bit about having a winning edge, and I understand that it's a team effort. It's no I in team.
Right.
You got to be able to work cohesively together. And more importantly, I call it a double H. If you want to be successful in life, in the workplace, in corporate America, in education institution, or you want in the sports endeavors or whatever, have the double H mentality. And that's be hungry and stay humble. I call it the double H. And if you can do that, then anything is possible, and things are happening for you. And I've always believed in that. I try to be a humble guy. And I always stayed hungry, because if you're not hungry, then you go eat. A lot of times you're gonna get the short end of the stick. So I just always believed in myself, and kept working hard. And my teammates that I played with, and every level I ever played with, we all believed in us, and we became champions.
You did. I should ask, you have the Super Bowl ring on? We should.
No, actually, it's not a Super Bowl ring. It's my high school state championship, 1978-79, Richmond County. I was the first class in 1978-79 to win the state championship in the state of North Carolina from Richmond County. My school was built in 1973, and by 78, I was the first class. Since then, Richmond County, if anybody know anything about Richmond County and Hamlet, Rockingham, North Carolina, they know that we got a great high school football program there. We've won probably 10, 11 state championships since my time. We've had 275 D1 players in college football. And we've had over 20-something NFL players come out of my high school.
Wow, that's really impressive, because it's not that, Richmond County's not that big, is it?
No, we probably have 50,000, 60,000 people in the whole county.
Yeah, but to have that many pro NFL players, you're kind of like Samoa, where Troy Polamalu's from, right? Because they have a lot, emphasize football there, and they've had quite a few. As Perry knows, I disclosed I'm a Steeler fan, but he knows Coach Bill Cowher was a couple years ahead of him at NC State, so there's that Steeler
We won't hold
connection.
that against you.
We won't hold it against me. Now, Giants are okay. I root for you guys anytime you're not against the Steelers.
Anxious, exhausted, stressed out, losing your mind? Ready to get your life back? Go to reawakenyourbrilliance.com to learn how Julie Caraccio can support you.
Perry, I wonder, we always talk about that nature-nurture thing. And there are probably, I'm sure, a lot of things in your life that you could have said, you know what, because I'm this or I'm that, or this happened to me, I should not have succeeded, and yet you did. What would you say to someone out there who maybe thinks they're at a disadvantage or they're in a tough spot? What do you think it is about you that allowed you to believe in yourself and achieve? Do you think you were born that way, or you trained yourself to believe? What would you say to that?
It's a combination of things, Julie. I had mentors. I had people who was positive reinforcers, like a Charlie Bishop, my grandmother, Annie Mormon, she's now deceased, Annie Mormon DeBerry. I had my mother. I had my uncle, which is my Uncle Paul Leach, that lives here in Apex or the Holly Springs area outside of Raleigh here. People just kept giving me that feedback, that positive reinforcement feedback that you can do it, just keep hanging in there. And once you start hearing that enough times, then after a while you start believing that you can achieve something. And I've always had the mentality, once I learned that and understood that, don't quit, don't ever give up, the Jim Valvano motto that he used for many years. Coach V and I became friends when I came to NC State, and especially when I went in the NFL. But I always tell people, just don't quit. I know it's going to be tough. It's easy to quit. But it takes, it takes a special individual, man or woman, boy or girl, to hang in there when the tough times are there. But I've always believed that if you could hang in there and just refuse to lose, refuse to be denied, then anything is possible. And I guess I'm a living example because first and foremost, Julie, I hate to lose. I will say that to the audience, to your fan base here. I despise losing. You know, isn't it? Nobody remember losers. Everybody remember winners. And I don't say that to be cocky or conceited or arrogant. I'm just telling you that's a fact of life. You know, successful businessmen or women, they don't become successful because they accept losing. Mm-hmm. You know, losing, you know, to me, you know, a loser is a person who congregate and go in the corners a lot of times and point fingers and he did this or she did that and they don't like me and I don't like them or whatever. But true winners will come together and make that common code or that common cause and make it happen and become winners. And that's just the way it is.
Now, what would you say to someone, because you said throughout your life you had mentors that helped you and were an important part to that. So what would you say to someone who doesn't have a mentor, or would you have advice on how to for someone to find a mentor?
That's you know, you try to find where that, it's like anything else in life. You know, you're as good as the people you surround yourself with. Okay, if you're in a negative environment, I don't care if you come from Section 8, if you come to projects, or if we say down south, the country projects or the northern projects up in New York and New Jersey, where I'm at a lot of my work up there. Yeah, if you be around that positive person, then it rubs off. It becomes contagious. I was saying that to my uncle earlier this evening. You know, you be around negativity, I mean, that's what's going to happen. You know, you got to be around positive people. And I know if you come from, you know, disadvantaged situation, I understand about humble beginnings. I come from a low income. I didn't have much money. My mother made, $10,000, $11,000 a year when I was growing up in the textile mill. But at the same token, I had positive people. And so you go find that positive. Everywhere in America is someone is positive. And so you go find in your community, in your necessarily in your environment where you may live at, or in your state, somewhere, you go find somebody that is positive, and then you go find that person and be around that kind of environment.
I believe that. I also say often that in every moment you have a choice. You have a choice whether to find a positive person, or you have a choice whether to hang out with a negative person. And I think a lot of times I hear people say, well, I don't have a choice. I'm stuck in this job. I don't have a choice. And you're making a choice by staying in that job. Exactly. And I believe that if people, that's one little thing, if they can make that switch and realize, okay, I do have a choice, I can choose what I want to do, and that you do have control over your life, that can make a difference. One of the things I really appreciate about you is your commitment to leadership and community. So let's talk a little bit about leadership and leadership development. What does that mean to you?
Well, leadership is leading by example. I mean, first and foremost. You know, you cannot be a successful leader or a great leader if you don't lead by example. You know, anybody can go out and tell someone, delegate to someone and tell them what to do. If you're not willing to roll up your sleeves and jump in the foxhole with that individual or individuals, then you're not going to have a lot of success. And I believed in that, and I've always said that about leadership. I define it as leadership having an individual or individuals buying to one's concept. You know, the leadership is, you know, being able to achieve one's purpose. Those things are very vital and important to me. I can only say again by my own example of the times and the things I've been able to do over the years involved with my sports endeavors, and even after my life in the sports world, transitioning back into the real world, in my education components that I'm involved in at the university, Farrell Dickinson University in New Jersey. You know, just going out there and working together, working with my constituents there, working with my colleagues, working with the administrators at the board of trustees. You know, it's all about having a winning attitude and winning edge. We all there for one cause. It's not about you and not about me. It's about the university. It's about the people or the cause that you're working towards.
Do you think we can all become leaders, or do we need to have some people that follow?
Well, you know, I personally believe that anybody can become a leader. Me personally, when I use the example, if I can use an analogy of a football analogy, I think about Harry Carson. I think about Lawrence Taylor. I think about Phil Simms. Harry Carson, great football player, played for New York Giants many years. He was our team captain, played in Hall of Fame, inducted a couple years ago. Lawrence Taylor was a great player, played at that other school, Chapel Hill over there. You know, I'm being an NC State man, say the other school. But Chapel, LT, they all led by example, but I led by example. You know, I was one of the quiet guys on the team, and I didn't get all the notoriety, you know, like some of these other guys, the Phil Simms. Now, Phil Simms is the great commentator on NBC or ABC it is now on TV, and I'm glad for him. He's doing great with his new life. But I led by example. My work ethic, it was unmatched. You know, my commitment, my attitude, And it took me, it's no secret, Julie, it took me for 11 years. It was told to me by the New York Football Giants after I retired that was one of the things, contributing factors of my longevity. Because I worked hard every day, I showed up, kept my mouth closed, kept my nose clean, stayed out of trouble, and went to work. And that's the attitude I had, because it's the old saying about the NFL. Though now, the acronym for NFL, everybody say it's National Football League, but in reality it stands for not for long. If you don't produce, you're going home. So I knew if I didn't produce in New York, New Jersey, or Connecticut, that metropolitan area, they were going to give me a one-way ticket back to Richmond County in North Carolina, and I didn't want no one-way ticket. So I did what I had to do to take care of business.
Another thing that I love about hearing you speak is service is a huge part of your message, and you encourage others to serve. Why is that?
Well, it's giving back. I'm a believer in Christianity. I'm a spiritually in God. I grew up in the church. Grew up in a Baptist church. No matter Christianity is Christianity, spirituality. I believe that it's better to give than receive. My grandmother and my mother taught me that. Even my uncle, my uncle was a prime example, and I'm not saying that because he's here with me in the studio tonight, but I always watched him when I was a young boy and growing up, and then when I came up to college at NC State, things that he did with people, how he governed himself with others, elderly people, or just people in general, and I always trying to help other people, and I wanted to do that. My grandmother was a big advocate for that and giving back. I always give back. Doesn't matter how much you achieve in life, you always be humble and give back. I'm going back into the reading of spirituality in the book of James, where it said God opposes the proud but give grace to the humble. So I'm all about giving back. I was raised that way. It's part of my DNA. You can. What is it? I think somewhere in the scripture, correctly, if I'm not mistaken, it said, "What is it for a man and woman to profit the world just to lose your soul?" So I'm all about giving back, and I don't want to profit the world. And then all of a sudden, one day when my time comes, when I have to leave this place called Earth, that I have to face the big man someday, the upstairs man, and with the empty resume. I want to have something to show for us. So.
Tired of losing money because you aren't organised? Overwhelmed because you missed a soccer game because calendars weren't coordinated? Stressed out because you can't find what you own? Go to reawakenyourbrilliance.com to learn how Julie Caraccio can support you.
Why do you think it is, Perry? Hearing you speak, doing some research about you, there are so many young men in the NFL today. I mean, I'm a Steelers fan. I'm also a Mountaineer fan. We had Pac-Man Jones, who I believe murdered someone. We had another guy in the West Virginia team, and who committed serious crimes. Ben Roethlisberger was charged with rape twice. And so, what is it about you, or do you think it's because in the digital media age? But how come some of these young men, or the Hernandez, who just was arrested in the jail from the Patriots for murder. I mean, you're making millions of dollars a year. You've made it to this level that whatever you say, you have to be smart, you have to work hard, and then it seems to be thrown away. So I would like your opinion on that, why you think that is, or where they've gone wrong, or if you'd have advice for someone coming up so they don't take that wrong path.
First and foremost, Julie, the key words that I would say about this new generation of kids, and many, and some of them even in my time, not appreciative. They don't appreciate the opportunities. And I'm not saying because I can't not blame these young men or young women. A lot of them from their foundation, they come from the infrastructure that they was raised in. I was raised in a humble beginnings in a blue-collar home. I understood I was come from a single parent. My mother and my grandmother helped me, and as well as my uncle helped me along the way. So didn't have a father. Father would say within the infrastructure of the house, but I just think is not appreciative. I was appreciative of our people. I will share this story with. In 1983, I was drafted by the New York Football Giants, coming out of NC State. When I got there, unbeknownst to me, the general manager of the New York Giants, a great legendary executive, his name is George Young. He's now deceased, but George Young brought me in his office in the Meadowlands and set me down. He said, "Son, I know all about you. I know you're from Hamlet, North Carolina. I know you were obviously in NC State. I know your mother worked in a textile mill called LEO, and I know your grandmother helped your mother raise you." They said, "Well, we want you to do these three things. If you can do these three things, you'll have a long career here in the New York Giants organization. Keep your nose clean, work hard, and do what the coaches ask you to do. And if you can do that, then you may have a job for a long period of time." And I took that to heart, and all I needed to hear, and I went to work because it was a golden opportunity. Where was I as a young man? I don't care. You graduated from college in 1983 with my degree in the criminal justice background, with being a probation officer or whatever. What, $15,000 a year, $18,000 a year, and whether I can go to New York and make six figures. I mean, it wouldn't take a rocket scientist Einstein to figure that one out. Yeah, I was going to take the better pay, and so I was given the opportunity. Now, what is happening now with this new generation of kids? As I say it again, and I hope they take it to the league. If somebody's watching this, you can take it to the league. I guess it's not Paul Jackson, but Roger Goodell. These kids don't appreciate it. They don't appreciate the opportunities that is presented to them. And I don't know why that is the case. Maybe because there's so much money involved now, even more so than when I was playing. But at the same token, I don't care if it was $1, and then it was $1 million. My thing was I had a job to do. I had made a commitment. My word is my bond. I told the man that I was ready to go to work, and he gave me the opportunity, and I went out there. Now, another thing for me is the fear of failure. I didn't want to fail. Where was I going to go at? If I didn't make it there, then I was going to have to come back to North Carolina and maybe start from scratch and try to get somewhere. And I didn't want to be one of those guys of statistics. I wanted to be the one who went out there and made it happen and make the team and be a contributing factor to have the team have success. And I worked very hard for that. And so I had to sacrifice. A lot of kids don't want to sacrifice. They want all the glam, the riches, the big bright lights, and hang out with the movie stars and all this and that. But then at the same token, you got to put time in for that. That means going to bed at night, get your rest. You got to eat. You got to do your work. You got to do a combination of things. So a lot of guys don't want to do that. So they just want the riches and the fame. Give me the money. Show me the money mentality with the movie many years ago with Tom Cruise and Cuba Gooding. Show me the money, but you show me the money. Show me the results. And so I'm a strong advocate for the NFL, for the ownership. I know it's 32 teams now. When I was playing, it was 28. I'm a strong advocate for any of the professional team or the ownership. My thing is, and I've always said, is produce. I want the guys to produce. If you go play sports, you got to produce. There's nobody want to look at, see a loser. I mean, especially New York City. As I said early on, you cannot lose in New York. The media will eat you alive, and the fan base will run you out of town. They'll throw everything in the kitchen sink at you. So I knew I had to produce when I went. I think the story with Lawrence Taylor and I, obviously Lawrence Taylor went to Chapel Hill, and I was at NC State, and I was several years behind him. But I remember my first year playing. I didn't really play my first year, but my second year as I became quote-unquote a starter. We was out there and getting ready to play the game, my first game as a starter in '84, and he said, and then we was in the huddle and getting ready to play the game, and he said, well, this is not an ACC football, this is the NFL. If you don't produce, you know what that means? That means you're going to go home, not for long. So I took that at heart, and I knew I had to work hard, and I wanted it. And we played, in my era, we paid for the championships. The guys play, I don't know what they play for now. I guess they play obviously for the money, and then it's in the secondary, the rings is secondary. For me, the rings was first, and then the money came. We had the desire to play it.
I want you to share the story when you were, I can't remember if you were in grade school or middle school. You had the opportunity to go to D.C., but there was a conflict with the sports event. And talk about that and what your coach said to you and what you did. Yeah,
well, it was now, I guess I must have been 12 years old. I had an aunt in Washington, D.C., my grandmother's sister, which is my great aunt. She had come to visit in North Carolina, Richmond County, in Hamlet, and at the end, and I was playing Little League baseball. It was an all-star team getting ready to start up at that time. And I wanted to go on a vacation. I had never been nowhere in my life to go on a vacation. And my aunt said, well, I'm going back to Washington. I'll take you with me in a week or two, a couple weeks, and we'll send you back on the train. And that was fine with me. I was happy to get a chance to go to Washington, D.C. Unfortunately, we still was in the midst of my season in baseball, in Little League. And the coach, the same gentleman, called Charlie Bishop, came out to the house, and he was upset. He said, son, you can't leave. This is a team effort. The team needs you, and we all need you to come, and we're going to work together, and we're going to stay together. And so he finally convinced me, and I realized that it was a team effort. We all got to, it's either we're going to go down as one or we're going to be successful as one. And I was convinced, and I guess what resonated with me, he said, what, I'll take you on vacation with my family. And so I had never been there, so we're going to Florida, so you go with us to Florida. And so with that in mind, I changed my mind, and I stayed. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. I stayed, and it made me understand, putting the team first and understanding that it's not about me. And understanding that, you could have other things going on in your life. You can put those things aside, and then you eventually can be able to do some things. So that not going to Washington, D.C. and then catching that train ride back a week or two later to a couple Super Bowls. So it worked out for me.
I'm going to tweet and do some social media, and I think Goodell needs to hire you to speak to the NFL players of today. You walk the walk, you talk the talk, but you live their lives. You know what they're going through, so you're someone that they can relate to. But there might be a player out there who you could make the difference whether they take the wrong path or the right path, which could make all the difference in the world. Right. One thing when I heard you talk that I love, you suggest that we ask ourselves, what can I do to be a better person? Why? And is that something that you do every day?
Yes, I live and breathe it every single day. I've had a lot of great things happen to me in my life. I was telling you, as I said again, I was speaking with my uncle earlier. We was out to eat over here in Cary, North Carolina, the Golden Corral, and one of my favorite places to go to say. But nevertheless, it's about, just doing something that changing lives. I've had opportunities to do some things. People have helped me. It's time to pay it forward. It's time to give back to somebody. And it doesn't matter how much you can accumulate in life. If you can't feel good about yourself, that knowing that you did something for others and being a contributing factor to that, then life is worthwhile. Now, Martin Luther King said, if I may quote and say this, paraphrase it anyway, Martin Luther King, where he said, well, what is it for a man, to go out there and profit the world just to lose his soul? But he also said, I'd rather be a man of conviction than a man of conformity. Mm-hmm. Conformity means being idle, sitting around doing nothing. You're going to have a conviction in life. If a man hadn't found, and he also stated by paraphrasing this, that he said that if a man hadn't found something worth dying for in life, then maybe he's not fit to live at all anyways. Mm-hmm. So, I found a cause, I found a purpose in life to help others. It's not about me. I've had a lot of opportunities. I won Super Bowls. I've had things. I got clothes and shoes on my feet. I got a place to sleep. I eat every day. Thank God he gave me a couple other trinkets I have, a couple Super Bowl rings. So I feel good about myself. It ain't so much about me. It's about other people now. So that's why I live in my life. I'm not worried about, what I can do for me is what maybe I can do for someone else. I think we're all there. John F. Kennedy said many years ago, that success have many fathers, but a failure is an orphan. Mm-hmm. And so I believe in that. You have a little, everybody, when you're successful, everybody want to be around you. Everybody want to love you. Everybody want to hug your neck and tell you how great you are, pat you on the back. But when you're at the bottom of the heap and you're not doing too well, they treat you like an orphan. They don't want to see you, that in many ways, in many cases. So, I just believe that it's time to give back, and I'm continuing to give back.
Now, how have you remained so humble? I mean, when you're at that level, you have women throwing themselves at you, people throwing money. Yeah. I mean, I think that would be a challenge, because if you have people around you telling you how great you are constantly, I think sometimes, and obviously we've seen people that buy into it. Now, it sounds like your mother, grandmother, probably Uncle Paul's in that mix, kept you grounded and didn't let your head get too big. But was that part of it?
Yes, a combination of people, understanding who you are and whose you are, and understanding that your God is first and foremost the ruler. And I understood that. Like anybody else now, I had my fun, and I like to go out, and I like to meet people, and I've had my little nightlife in New York City and New Jersey over my years, but I understand I modified and understood when it's time to be serious and it's the time to have fun and play and fool around. So when it was time to go to work, then I put all that nonsense to rest and put it to the side and took care of business. And I was always, career orientated and in my business mind, just I guess straight and narrow, so to speak. I was not always on the straight and narrow. I got derailed. I got off track a couple of times, but nothing that was detrimental. It could have been bad. I wasn't doing drugs. I never did drugs. Didn't alcohol. I think the last alcohol beverage I had in 1979, I had a couple beers. But when I was signing my scholarship, I never had another ounce of alcohol in my system since 1979. I just think, again, to answer your question, Julie, I just stayed humble and I understood, you know what, I'm here today, but I could be gone tomorrow. Take advantage of the opportunities that I have before me, and be happy that you had the opportunity, and give back and continue to do things to try to help others. You know, I've had my time. I had my 2 minutes of fame. Some people get 5 minutes. I got maybe 2 minutes of fame, and that's fine. You know, the thing is, I think I stated to you earlier before you went on the air here, some people have identity issues. Some people have self-esteem issues. You know, it's a culmination of things that can be related to that, and why that's a contributing factor. But I've always believed in myself, and even though I come from humble beginnings, that I knew I was about somebody, that I could be somebody. And my philosophy is not how you begin, it's how you end anyways. Mm-hmm. So, I started out at the bottom and tried to come up and do something, hopefully be on the top. So my work is now just really begun, I should say. I did a lot of stuff in the sports world. I did a lot of things since then, but still I got a lot of work to do. And I'll continue to push forward and continue to try to change life. And I got a call in, and I'm not going to get into the depth with the spirituality too much here tonight, but I can say this. The voice came to me some years ago and said, I want you to do this. I did not want to get involved in what I'm doing now. To tell you the honest truth, my background is criminal justice and minor in psychology. I told you earlier, I got a master's in public administration and concentration in business, and I was going to be an entrepreneur. I was going to be a little businessman when I got out of football. And a voice came to me and said, no, that's what I want you to do. You're talking about the spiritual realm here, and this really, truly happened. And they said, I want you to go out and give back. I want you to work with young people. And I didn't really want to use that, take heed to that voice who was answering a call to the bell, and so I finally became submissive and gave in and understood that this is what I needed to do, and everything else is just taking off, skyrocket since then.
You've got to trust that. Talk a little bit about that. You don't have to go in depth, but because I've heard you speak before, faith and spirituality kind of, you say whatever it is, whether you call it spirituality, whether you call it faith, Christianity, that is a huge part of your life, and you believe it should be a part of others. Why is that? Why do you think that's beneficial?
Well, it teaches you about being humble. It teaches you about being a cheerful giver. It teaches you a whole combination of things, and it's not about me. It's about us. It's about the team aspect. And I just believe that spirituality has been raised in the spiritual confine and infrastructure. It helped me along the way. And I will share this story. And I don't very rarely share this story. I'm going to share this story on your show here, Julie. And I was talking to someone else today. I had a meeting I had to go to early on in Raleigh today. When I was in 1987, I had just won my first Super Bowl in the New York Giants. We had beat Denver Broncos and the great John Elway that particular year, Pasadena, California, in the Rose Bowl. Well, that following season, we're getting ready for season, and I'm playing and we playing in the season, and getting close to the end of the season, and I had a devastating blow. I hit a guy in a game where actually we were playing against the New York Football Jets. Hit a guy, knocked him, tackled him, got him on the ground. But he got up, and I did not get up. I was paraplegic. From my neck down, I was paralyzed for about 3 to 5 minutes. And then my whole world came revolved in instantaneously in a moment that this is what can happen to you. And then all of a sudden, I told one of my teammates, a great football player we had named is Carl Banks from Michigan State University, that I can't move, Banksy. And I told him to take my mouthpiece out of my mouth, and I started believing, and then I started saying, you know what, this is what can happen to you when you start become selfish, when you start saying, okay, this is about me, and then you forget about spirituality, forget about God as the number one first and foremost, because the Bible tell you, put no man before me, and so anything. And so I was laying on the ground, I couldn't move, couldn't do anything. And I closed my eyes and I asked God right then and there, well, if you get me off this ground in front of these 75,000 people in Giant Stadium in the Meadowlands, that I would change my ways and I would now become selfish and arrogant and conceited. And as I felt I was starting to become, but within 5 to 8 minutes, I started getting my feelings in my arms and my legs, and I was able, and then did not let me get off of the ground there. They carted me off into the back of the locker room or back to the stadium, to the doctors, and I got up, and from then on, I didn't play obviously the rest of the game, but later on, at the end of the season at that time anyway, so I was able to play for the next 6 years. That was my first 5 years. That right there was the telling story for me. You know, don't put nothing before me when spirituality, when God and the Holy Maker, the one who created everything, you know, you put nothing. You know, and I realized then you can't be conceited, you can't be a selfish person even more. So, and I was never really that way, right? But I started feeling good about myself because the bright lights in the movie stars, you meet movie stars, all of a sudden that New York City can corrupt you, it can make you or break you. And I started, you know, feeling that way a little bit, getting beside myself, if you want to call it that. And God, you know, put me back in my place real quickly.
We've got great sound effects here in the studio. So you've talked about 2 H's, which I hadn't heard before, humble and hungry, which I like. I'm going to use those, and I'm going to quote you. But you also have your 3 D's. Can you share those with us?
Oh, the 3 D's, the 3 do nots.
3 do nots.
You know, do not quit anything you start. Do not let anyone outwork you, and do not be intimidated by anyone or anything.
And so that's something I can tell you've lived your life by because of how your life is.
Yes. You know, I just believe in that. I think about people like the great Winston Churchill. You know, you make a living by what you get, but you make a life by what you give. Timothy Boats in Proverbs, where he said, evil people get rich for the moment, but a good person rewards to last forever. Eleanor Roosevelt, when she once said that the future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of the dream. She also said, Julie, you was at that event when I spoke on Eleanor Roosevelt when she said about women is like a tea bag. She said, you never know how strong they are until you put them in hot water.
That's for sure. That's for sure. You've given us such great things to think about tonight. What would you say to someone? I mean, I love that example that you shared with us, how you were paralyzed and you prayed and you could see in your mind that, you know, you're maybe starting down that wrong path. What would you say to someone? It might be a teenager, it might be a grown man, it might be anyone in a certain situations. If they're at a crossroads and maybe they're not going to have a profound experience like you did, but is there any thoughts that you'd like to share with them if they're potentially going down that wrong path, maybe your thoughts that would steer them in the right direction?
Well, more importantly, just try to stay humble and try to be a cheerful giver. Try to help others. Try to help and love and care about other people. You know, and I just think that's the most important thing. You know, it's not about the individual. You know, you don't have to be a movie star to give. You don't have to be a professional athlete to give. You don't have to be, you know, singer, you know, or whatever to give. You can be an everyday person and give. You know, you never know. I think the President Barack Obama, where he said, you know, you never know, you know, until you hit yourself up to something that is bigger than yourself, then you realize your true potential. So you got to hit yourself up to something and then stay focused, stay forward, and steadfast to it, and make a dream become a reality. Just don't give up. Just don't quit. We all have our challenges. You know, not everybody gonna be the top dog, or everybody gonna be the top lady. Some, you know, that's the old adage we say, you know, adage I've said many times with Native American. And when we talk about, you know, I got some Native American in my blood, in my family. Everybody can't be the chief. Somebody got to be the Indian. So I don't mind being the Indian. So that's fine with me.
You know, my great-grandfather was a janitor, but what he told my mom was, you do everything, but you do it in excellence. And
that's
so,
right.
You know, some people might look down on that, but
that's all right.
But he did an excellent job, and he took care of his family,
that's
and,
right.
You know, he took pride in what he did. And so, like you say, you can be the Indians, but that being a janitor is an important job. We're all equal. We're all important. There's no job that's more important than another one, but I sometimes don't think we see that.
That's a great point you said that, Julie, because I say that about leadership. You know, you can take a man or a woman who's at the bottom. When I go to speaking engagements, I make it a point, I mean, at all costs most of the time, that if I'm at a banquet, I'm going to see the women and the men who work in the tables and the servers. I want to talk to them. I want to shake their hand. I want to, you know, tell them I thank them for the food. Or, You know, if they want an autograph or I'll sign a picture for, I'll make time for them because if they're down there serving you, that don't mean that you got to treat them like they're serving. They're human beings like everybody else. And so I go from the top to bottom. I've met with CEOs and CFOs and presidents and all these different men and women, and they'll probably look at me like I'm crazy, but I get up and I go talk to their everyday people, because if you don't treat those people right, you can never be a great leader.
Absolutely.
And
And
that's
you
how
know,
I
as they
look at it.
say, the people you're meeting on the way up, you're going to meet on the way down, because
That's
you
right.
know what? You're not always going to be on the top.
That's right. You know, that's right. Absolutely. My grandmother always said, God bless her dad, but she always said, you know, you never know who will give you the last drink of water, son. So you better, you know, try to treat everybody with respect.
Which I can tell from the moment I met you. Perry was so humble. You're like, hey, I'm Perry Williams. I'm like, you're an NFL player. We got to talk. But just that humbleness comes through in everything you do.
Paid late fees because you can't find your bills? Child miss out on a field trip because of a lost permission slip? Missing out on reimbursements because you can't find your receipts? Go to reawakenyourbrilliance.com to learn how Julie Caraccio can assist you.
Why do you believe it starts with the mind? Believing is achieving. Why does it start there?
Well, the mind controls the whole body. Your body, you can be physically inclined, and in the body, the physical tools, you can look like a Greek god. You know, some of these athletes, male and female. But if the mental aspect is not there, then you're not going to make it. I always say, I use that analogy all the time, that mind over matter. You know, if you don't think you can do it physically, then you're not going to do it. You might have all the physical tools in the world. If you're mentally not in, you know, on the same page and having that mindset on the positivity aspect of it, then you're not going to make it. And so, you know, I always say to young people, or just people in general, learn how to impose your will on the situations. You got to learn how to impose your will. You know, steel wheel mentality. I call it the steel wheel mentality. If you don't have the steel wheel, man, I don't care if you're a businessman, a woman, or whatever. You can be whatever, CEO of a company, the president. You're going to have that self-esteem issues. You're going to have that identity crisis. And you're going to be walking on tulips, and you're wondering what's going to happen. That person not doing it, talking about me, or that person. If you walk the chalk line and you do the right thing, then you're not going to have to worry about that, because you're going to have a team effort. You're going to have a unified group, and you're going to have success. And that's how this stuff works. And so, you know, you don't take a rocket scientist, again, as I said to your audience, to figure this out. You have a little common sense. That we say down south in North Carolina, we have a little mule sense. So just have a little mule sense and you'll be all right.
What do you do to conquer doubt and criticism? Because we all get that, even if we have a lot of confidence and believe that we can, we all face that. So what would you say to that if someone's dealing with that right now?
Repeat that again, please.
So if you have doubt or criticism, how would you conquer that?
Well, criticism, a lot of people, when I say about criticism and doubt, I guess come to my mind, you know, misery loves company. When some people are miserable, they want everybody to be miserable. You know, so my thing is, I don't need no negativity. If you want to think about negativity, you go on that side of the room and I go on my side of the room. You know, and I go do what I do. And I guess to this old adage with these young kids, they say, Bonnie, you know, you do you and I'm going to do me. So it's all about it. I'm not going to be around negativity. And I was talking to my uncle again today. I keep bringing that up with my uncle early on. You know, we're talking about this life and endeavors and things in life and things you have to do. I'm not going. I just don't tolerate unnecessary nonsense. You know, if you're not coming to the table with the right stuff for me, information or resources, then you waste. You know, I'm wasting my time. My grandmother always said, I use that as going back again. You can do bad by yourself. You don't need no dead weight. I don't need dead weight. You know, I'm already got enough on me as it is. So, you know, I just believe in, you know, going out there and working hard, surrounding myself with positive people who are doubtful. You know, I try to encourage them, and I try to give as I said early on, positive reinforcement. I keep saying, if I say it enough to someone, if they have doubts and not encouraged or have some self-esteem issues, I keep saying it enough, and maybe it might take heave, and it might take hold, and they might start believing that they maybe can achieve. And, you know, living from my example, where if this guy come from this situation, maybe I can do something. But I just got to believe in myself.
Who inspires you? Because I believe you inspire a lot of people. Who inspires you?
A lot of different people. People I don't say it because of my uncles. My uncle inspired me because I love the things he's done where he tried to help people. And that's positive reinforcement. That's reinforcing what my belief is. Who inspired me? Teachers, educators, people who trying to help teach the young people, the leaders for tomorrow. People like yourself, dude. I'm not just saying it because I'm on your show, try to pump your show up. I'm sure your show going to be great anyways. But the thing is, people like yourself who has the mind and the wherewithal to be able to do what you do, but you still want to help others and want to give back. See, that's the beauty of this whole thing. I want an infrastructure of people like yourself and other people that I know that I can go to, and what I call them my soldiers. Now, a male is my faithful soldiers, then my women, I call them soldierettes. So I'm looking for soldierettes, to come in here. So that's the kind of infrastructure that I want, and that's the kind of infrastructure I know I have success with.
And feel free, you can pump up the show anytime you want, Perry. There is no limit to that on what you need to do. So tell us a little bit about the work you've done with kids, because I find that completely inspiring, because I think this generation of kids really need it. And I read a great quote the other day, talking to parents, that how you first treat your child, that becomes their inner voice, which I think is so true. But you do a lot of work with kids. So talk a little bit about that.
Well, I enjoy, as I told you earlier, a little while back, the voice came to me many, many years back and said that I want you to, this is your call. I want you to work with young people. Now, I didn't think I wanted to do that. I do a little bit. I give some time back when I'm doing my entrepreneurial stuff, and I just give a little time. But when it told me to go into it full force with all 2 feet and everything else I had, my body extremities to go in it, and things would work out, once I got in and I realized that I had a story to tell. And I realized that these kids, it's no disrespect to a corporate America or businessman or woman, kids are impressionable. They love sports. They want to see these athletes that they idolize on TV, and they want to hear their story. How did you get there? How did you do this? And so I've used that platform, my celebrity from in the state of North Carolina, from being there, obviously, how ironic was it for me to go to New York City? Out of all these NFL teams, I could have in there Los Angeles, Seattle, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh or whatever. But, ironically, I ended up in the largest city in America. And that was by the grace of God, and in my opinion. Talk about spirituality. God put me there because he knew that was the biggest city, that's the biggest market. The biggest market that I could get exposure. That was not only just to get exposure for the football aspect of it, but the platform. Where I told you early on before you went on the show tonight that at one point our U.S. Army was sponsoring a program throughout the country, and this is a marketing firm out of New Jersey that hired my services. I went to 30 major cities in the country, and I had 1 million kids, and I covered those character education initiative in a 2-year span.
That's wonderful. I think that's something we need. Now, Perry, there's a couple questions I like to ask each guest that comes on. And the first one is, what would you say to someone out there who's just in a tough spot? They're struggling. Maybe they're going through a divorce. Maybe they lost their job. Maybe a dream didn't come true. But they're struggling right now. What advice would you have for them?
Keep believing. Keep dreaming. Just keep your vision. Refuse to quit. Refuse to lose. Refuse to be denied. Just stay in it. I guess the old adage again, if it was easy, then everybody would be doing it. Life is not easy. Believe me, I've had some trials and tribulations, some ups and downs, have my turmoil, have things that happen to me, even as I said, in the beginning, in the middle, and even up to today. Things happen, and we have tragedies and things happen in life, but you gotta stay focused. I think focus is a key component. Learn how to be focused. I know when the tough get going, and a lot of people want to fold the tent and give in and throw the flag in, but you got to be able to, persevere and stay with it and work hard and refuse to quit. As I said, I guess Jimmy Valvano, his greatest motto, his motto for the Jimmy V Foundation, never give up. Just don't quit. Just don't quit. If you don't quit, then you can never lose if you don't quit. I think the greatest quote I read somewhere was Mike Dicker, the legendary football coach of Chicago Bears. He said, you're never a quitter until you quit trying. When you quit trying, then you're a quitter. You're never a quitter. You don't quit. You just never lose. When you give up, then that's it. Then you lose. Absolutely. It just comes to that Newt Rockland, the legendary coach in Notre Dame many years ago. I read somewhere in his memoir of some books I read where he said that he loved bad losers because good losers lost too often. Now, what did that mean, Williams? What you're saying here? Well, when you go out there and you think that you're gonna lose and you think you're gonna give up and you go ahead and quit, then you lost the game. When you refuse to lose and you keep fighting because there's always going to be another day. The sun going to shine tomorrow eventually. It might be a rainy day today, but another day it's going to be bright, and you got to come back. Paul Bear Bryant, University of Alabama, I read somewhere in his memoirs, his biography, where he said that, winning might not be everything, but it sure as heck be coming in second place. Who want to come in second place? The bottom line is you want to win in your business, in your corporation, you presidents out there, you executives out there. You want to win. So you want to win, you got to go get the people to win with. You can't win, it's an analogy that I use. You can't take a donkey to the Kentucky Derby and think you're going to win him. You got to have thoroughbreds that take him to the Kentucky Derby. And that's how you're going to win. Okay, people?
All right. Now, the second question I like to ask is, I do this show to motivate people, and I want them to take action. So what one step would you say people could take right after the show or before they go to bed or tomorrow morning when they wake up to reawaken their brilliance?
First and foremost, drop on your knees and give your blessing and say a prayer to God. If you don't know nothing about that, start working on your spirituality realm. Start believing in that. Start giving back to it. You don't have to go in there and read the Bible upside down, sideways and all that. Just start believing in a cause and stick with that cause and believe in it and stay with it. And then you'll see a magical change before your eyes, because I'm a living example of it. And if you can do that, then anything is possible. Just believe in yourself and don't ever give up. Another thing that I say, about motivation, I use the term, you heard me talk about this, Julie, when I say about motivation. Some people can stay motivated for a day. There are others who can stay motivated for a week. I've met many who can stay motivated for a month or so. But a true winner will stay motivated for what? As long as it takes.
Absolutely. Now tell people if they want to learn more about your speaking. You just had a pamphlet. Where can they get more information? Or I know you have your upcoming class that you're teaching at Farley Dickinson. Yeah. Any good stuff that you'd like to share? Well,
I just gave you a pamphlet early on. If you want to know more about me, just call Julie, please, and she'll help me get in the information to you that you need. That's pretty much the crux of this whole thing. Julie's a great lady here. You guys keep on tuning in to her show, and I'm sure that she can give you the information about me. I'm not hard to find. Julie has my information. She got my email. Just email me, pwilliams@023gmail.com, and we can go with it, and we can make some changes. We make some things happen. Believing is achieving. And
go ahead. I'm saying that you're at Farley Dickinson with their leadership and ethics. So people are up in that area, and you said it's business people like myself that you're teaching. So if they're interested, you have graduate courses up there.
Yeah, we have our graduate. There. Yeah, we have a graduate class. You want to go to graduate school? We have our curriculum that I'm involved in with the administrative science department. Ron Khaleesi is the chairman of that department. We have people who want to go into sports management and sports administration. We have a graduate program level, undergraduate and graduate level set up there. I'm lecturing classes there, doing some classes in leadership and management courses. So it's the culmination of things. So I call it, as you see, Julie, on my new brochures I just received off the press about a week ago. My new initiative is called The Experience. So if you want my experience and for my testimony, please by all means call me.
Take actions from today's podcast. Practice visualizing what you would like to achieve as well as how it would feel to accomplish your dreams. Take stock of your inner circle, those you are closest to and spend the most time with. Do they support you and believe in you? If not, limit the time you spend with people or dial back the friendship. Find a mentor and others who could be part of your team. Practice appreciation for what you have and your opportunities. Consider making a list to refer to often. On our next episode, we will be talking about good self-care to enhance how we love and take care of ourselves. Go out, clear the clutter to create the life you choose, deserve, and desire.
Ready to live a more joyful and fulfilling life? Sign up for our newsletter at reawakenyourbrilliance.com and receive a free copy of 10 Steps to Clearing Clutter Inside and Out. If you enjoyed today's episode, please rate and review Clearing the Clutter Inside and Out. See you next Tuesday at 1 p.m.